Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and now let's talk My Hero Academia chapter 154. Thank God My Hero Academia is back this week. It means the author is healthy again, and hopefully he will not have any more health problems for at least the next year. Let's wish him good health. Anyway, let's talk this chapter of My Hero Academia. In broad strokes, what did we ultimately get? Well, initially I read this chapter, I read the spoilers first. Well, I didn't read it, I just looked through the spoilers first to know what we were getting in this chapter. And initially I was pretty worried because it was a combat heavy chapter. And usually with combat heavy chapters, depending on the series, you may not get much that you can actually talk about. Thankfully, that isn't the case for this chapter of My Hero Academia. It's a combat chapter, but it's also kind of it's kind of transition. We have a bit of transitions going on because the main event here is Izuku versus Overhaul. In terms of the function of the chapter, this only served to kind of delay that main title fight. Instead, we have the lesser goals being accomplished first. That is the removal of Lemillion and Eri, and also, yeah, actually that was the sub goal. It was to remove them from the active combat scene. So we get that going on, and we have Deku taking care of that, and then we have Sir Night-Eye doing his thing and setting up the dramatic stakes for the next chapter. So when you look at the structure, we pretty much delay the fight that was set up with the last chapter because it looked like it was going to be Deku versus Shizaki. Instead, we get more hyping up effectively and just actual progression towards other goals. And it ultimately works out to be a chapter that's worth talking about because the actual combat scenes, they're actually fairly nicely divided in the chapter. We have a nice mix of what's going on here. And there's actually quite a few little bits that we can talk about. So let's just start in order. I'll have the pages up on the video so that we can look at the page as I'm talking about it pretty much, I guess. So let's touch on Aizawa. The first page that you'll open up in this chapter, it's Deku and he's assessing the situation. And this is also a pretty nice little thing because later on we do find out that Deku's action here might have been a direct result of Aizawa telling him to calm down or to take things calmly, analyze the situation properly. But anyway, in Deku's analysis of what's going on, we note that Aizawa's not there. That was very strange. I thought, okay, did Aizawa somehow remove himself? Did Overhaul just shove him away somewhere? That was very strange, and I just thought, okay, well, maybe this won't get addressed. But as we find out, this is a point that got addressed later on in the chapter, with Shizaki noting that he has effectively taken Aizawa hostage. He has removed them from the combat because, as Shizaki says, he likes having people that can erase quirks. He has an interest in them. That's very concerning. The moment that that panel was there, I was worried about Aizawa, but then getting the confirmation that Shizaki took him away, it's relatively concerning. They've really raised the stakes by doing that. Now, Aizawa is a professional hero. He has more things available to him. His quirk is also one of those quirks where you need to put in effort to actually make it work in a combat scenario. Because of that, we should be relatively relaxed about Aizawa. Aizawa probably can get out of there, but this is still kind of scary. It's kind of scary, if Shizaki gets his way, Aizawa being taken away, that'll hurt. That'll really hurt. So I like how we have a realistic we have already a really bad situation, and it was just made a little bit worse because now there's that underlying fear of we're not exactly sure where Shizaki put Aizawa, and that's worrying. But if we're going towards a good ending, which we probably are, a more or less bittersweet ending at worst, we're probably gonna have Aizawa safe. But that was just a nice setup. He set it up at the beginning of the chapter with Izuku's analysis. He confirmed it with Night-Eye. That was a pretty cool little thing, and it kind of does draw up the stakes. We were able to save the little girl Eri, but we lost Aizawa, so that hurts. But anyway, that's one chunk of the chapter. That was a really nice point to have in there. Moving on, let's talk Night-Eye, because he is another chunk of the chapter, and he is giving us some pretty good questions that we can ask, mostly revolving around his foresight quirk. So the first thing to really appreciate here, he's the one that's getting the chunk of the action shots for this chapter. like Shizaki notes, Night Eye is the guy that trained him, so Night Eye clearly has some battle capabilities, and we get to see it here. It's pretty awesome. Overall, it's pretty awesome seeing the choreography for this fight scene, and overall, I really enjoyed it. Like Night Eye, again, I really like the characters whose quirks aren't combat capable, because like instead they have to do things that technically a real person could do. Of course, Night Eye has the extra advantage that he can see things a little bit ahead of time, but overall in the battle scene, pretty awesome stuff. Like the battle choreography, and in terms of the battle, there was something that Night Eye was saying, and that was that Shizaki is still afraid of Mirio, and that's pretty interesting. That's some pretty interesting rhetoric. You know, it's trash talking during a fight, but that's like, you're gonna make the man angry. But that's a really good point. Shizaki was pushed so far by Mirio even when Mirio had been effectively declawed. It was just neat that Night Eye still brings it up when he's in such a dangerous situation. And that brings us into talking about his quirk, because this is going to be one of the more interesting parts of the chapter, because we have something kind of artistic going on with what happens to Night Eye. So, what to talk about first? Alright, let's talk about the gruesomeness that happened to him first. As we see in the chapter, he gets skewered. That's not... that's pretty bad. It's a pretty bad situation. It's not the most nice injury that you could have gotten in My Hero Academia. Now, there's one panel where I myself, I really can't tell what's going on, but we'll look at it real quick here. It's this panel with the leg. As you can see, that foot I don't think should be facing that way. I don't think that's not a way a foot should be facing, but so, you know, it goes without saying, the guy's damaged. But as we're seeing in this panel right here, this is a pretty bad injury. This is undoubtedly, it's life-threatening. As we can see, he's lost an arm and he has a giant thing sticking out of his abdomen. And also, as we saw in the last panel, his foot's kind of facing the wrong way, at least from what you're looking at in that scene. This injury is going to play a big part into what happens with Night Eye's quirk though, but let's just appreciate that Night Eye took quite a bit of... He took big hits, and this ties back to his quirk because Night Eye gives us the narration, or we get the narration of how his quirk works, or just how Night Eye himself kind of deals with it. We talk about the balance sheet and how Night Eye could try to fix the events that he sees, but somehow the universe will course correct and it just goes back to natural flow. I actually like the idea of Night Eye pretty much putting in a few extra frames and then it kind of just coming back together. And then he also touches on another really interesting topic, being that maybe just him looking at the event locks them into that fate, and that's pretty cool. I think that's a rationale that you could prove with quantum physics. The mere observation of an event locks it into a reality. I think that happens with like the duality experiment, the particle duality experiment. I can't remember what it's called, but you know that experiment where something's hitting both left and right at the same time, but when you put a measuring device, it locks either into left or right. Well, overall, it's a cool idea to have with Night Eye, and I think the idea of like, yeah, him looking at the event locks it in, I think that would be pretty fair. I think that's like, yeah, alright, that's a relatively good drawback to having that quirk, because if you see something that's nasty, maybe you take away the possibility of actually fixing it. So that's pretty interesting, but that also would say that All Might's death is still coming. Like, at the very least, any force that would try to prevent All Might's death might only serve to kind of delay it, which is gonna be, it's gonna be pretty sad here. Now, with the narration, we know that what what Night Eye is hoping to do is to see just Shizaki falling, like him falling victim, and we see right after that that he sees nothing but black. Now, what does that actually imply in terms of Night Eye's foresight? Night Eye is on death's door, and there's another condition going on here that he's specifically looking for a future where Shizaki loses. So, that black screen, what could it mean? My first thing is that maybe Night Eye can't see a future where he's not alive. Maybe it's just going to be black if Night Eye as a presence isn't there. So, that's the first big thing that I'm thinking. That black screen means that Night Eye's dead in that future. The second possibility is that Night Eye is specifically looking for a scenario that requires Shizaki to be apprehended, defeated, and for the kids to be safe. What if he can't find that because there's not a future where Shizaki is actually apprehended by the police? Would that negate him from being able to see the future? We don't really know the specifics with Night Eye's quirk, and if his own personal bias would take him into a part where he can't see a future. Because if he's doing like a search command and he's searching specifically for those conditions, him getting a black screen makes sense. But that explanation requires the quirk being more user-friendly, and it might not be that way. So because of that, it might be just that future, maybe Night Eye is just not there to see it. And that takes us into like the next big thing, and it's mostly with Deku, because Deku's saying something at the end here, and we'll talk about Deku using 20% as well as soon as we clear this part. Deku's talking about how he's going to change fate. Now, that's interesting, but we don't know how the cosmology of My Hero Academia works. The closest thing we know about it is anything that Night Eye tells us. Because of that, this is just Izuku saying superhero rhetorics. Because of that, this is just Izuku talking the talk. Him talking about changing the fate that's been decided. Who is he to actually be able to do that? All for one. Or sorry, not all for one. One for all. I always get those two mixed up. Because, yeah, anyway. One for all is not a quirk that I think should be at any degree cosmologically important. I don't think it is. Because of that, when you have this rhetoric popping up, it's pretty much, this rhetoric only applies to Shizaki. Like when he says that he's going to change the fate that's been decided, it's pretty much he's only going to change the fate that Shizaki's decided. I don't think Izuku has any right to be able to interfere with the fate that Night Eye has seen. Because of that, it's kind of unfortunate, I guess. Like Izuku ends off the chapter saying that he will bend the future. Realistically, will he do that? I don't know, man. I don't think so. I think whatever future Night Eye has seen, Izuku's just going to be playing a part in it. That's all. Because again, like Night Eye has said that his quirk, he can't really stop it. And if the universe in My Hero Academia is working on course correcting, specifically, if the universe of My Hero Academia is capable of course correcting, that means it's a deterministic universe. Like it will not bend to Izuku's whims. Why would it? Why would it bend to any human's whims, right? So this is actually a case of Izuku using rhetoric that ultimately doesn't mean much, but just gets people excited. And we've had a case of this before on a lesser degree back when Izuku was fighting Muscular, where he used the 1 million or 100,000, I don't remember the exact percentage, but that high number for his smash. We know from the author himself, when the author said that was just something that Izuku said in the burst of the moment. Like it didn't mean anything. It was just Izuku, something that he said. And the author ultimately apologized for confusing readers, because readers take everything seriously when it's presented in the manga, because the initial bias is anything that's presented by the main characters is most likely true. So people tend to take it literally. You know, I'm just talking about that because I find it a really interesting point here, but when you have this thing with Izuku, I think this will be a harsh lesson for him, that some futures you can't change. Like at the end of the day, you're just a human, and especially with Night Eye setting it up that he hasn't been able to fix futures that he has seen himself. Will it be an issue where you just need someone who's strong enough to fix the future, and then you can somehow negate the course correction? I don't think so. I think the future is going to be harsh. I think whatever is set to happen is going to happen. It's a deterministic future. I think that's what we're getting. Anyway, guys, sorry for talking about that, you know, the idea of the future and the nature of the universe in My Hero Academia. The overall point is, I don't think Izuku is actually going to change the future. I think this is something he's saying. He's gonna pretty much destroy Shizaki's future, but the future that Night Eye is seeing, or the future that he can't see, Izuku's gonna have no influence in that. He's just gonna be a cog in the grand scheme of the universe. Now, just to talk about Izuku very quickly, his 20% one for all. That's interesting. That was pretty cool. You know, he's noting that his bones are creaking, his muscles are hurting and all that, and it's like, all right, this is cool. So, you know, this is one of the cool things about Full Cowl, is that it's not a power-up. Full Cowl is not a power-up. It is a training device. Izuku's wearing training wheels. This is just him learning how to ride a bike. So him deciding, oh yeah, I could probably take out one training wheel and going to 20%, it's like, okay, that's cool. That's really cool. I do wonder though, could he have gone to 15% and not have the kickback that he's having right now? Would 15% be safe? Most likely, because we're seeing that he can handle 20% on a time limit. So I'm pretty excited to see what he's gonna do. But then, like, if you recall, like, Izuku's already used 100% before. We've already seen the maximum limits of Izuku's power, although there's a lot of reason to believe that even at 100%, Izuku's wasting a lot of energy. But you know, it'll just be interesting to see exactly what's 20% look like, and just how quickly can Izuku deal with Shizaki. It'll be pretty cool. Other little notes to say about the chapter. Let's see. Izuku's Iron Souls saved him in the chapter, and yeah, I can't think of any other notes. Like, the big things I wanted to talk about were Aizawa's disappearance and the future telling from Night Eye, and also the possibility I think Night Eye is dying. I'm also going to be making a video of like how all this can be fixed at the end of the arc. Guys, keep an eye out for it. I'm not sure when it's going to be made. I have a lot of videos I need to do, but hey, thanks for sticking around for like 17 minutes. This was a really fun chapter to talk about. Anytime that I get to talk about cosmology of a series, it's pretty cool because you get to bring in a lot of different theories that philosophers have had over the centuries of our time on Earth, and it's just a pretty nice time to talk about it. But I do hope that this was entertaining enough for you. Let me know what you thought down below, and if anyone got to the end of the video, let me know with let's think of something funny, because then it'll make other people who are watching it like, what? Oh man, I don't know. I'm not that funny. Just say hashtag worth a hero or something like that. I'll get it. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Till next time, I hope you have a great day, and yeah, keep on trucking.